All right. Who in here, I come back to Canada every year for these conferences, who in here has heard me speak before? So you guys are ready for the really dumb jokes? Yeah? I like to test out new ones here. So I have a few banked for you guys today. So as you mentioned, I'm talking about AI. I get to speak to you guys from a regulatory perspective and a food safety perspective, both of which I have some experience in, and I get to help my customers with every day. But first, I want to take a minute to breathe after all of that biomapping, statistical process control. Come talk to me at happy hour, and I'll tell you a story about my college statistics class. It's not a pretty one. But I want you guys to think about AI. We're going to talk. I'm going to try to get interactive with you guys and try to apply this to you as best we can. So I want everybody to, if you can, if you have room to, stand up if you use AI at work or at home. Stand up if you use AI in some form. What? We have a few holdouts. All right, you guys can sit back down. Figured that would get you a little bit of movement, a little bit of stretch after what we just sat through. A lot of great points. But most of you, I would say 98% of the people in this room stood up, which means you're applying AI. What I want to talk to you guys about today is how to apply AI in a practical way. And I'm going to talk about some of the pitfalls, the problems that you can run into. Who in here, maybe I'll make you stand up again. If you use AI every day, you raise your hand or stand up if you've ever had AI hallucinate on you, give you really bad information. I absolutely have, and I'll talk about some of the ridiculous stories that I have from that. And I hope that you'll come and share them with me at our booth later as well. I love to hear them. So a roadmap of what we are talking about today. It is no longer an option, I think, to use AI. It's in your systems whether you know it or not. It's in your platforms, whether you know it or not. When you use Google now, you're using AI, right? It's giving you an AI summary. Beware of those AI summaries. They tend to conflate information. But I'm going to help you reframe AI as an operational necessity. I'm going to talk to you about where it's working well, where I see it working with my customers. Then I'm going to tell you those common pitfalls, those things to look out for. So as you are looking for an AI partner or for a platform to utilize AI in a safe way, what to look for. I am, of course, going to talk about how TraceGains applies AI, because that's who I work for. And then I'm going to give you a call to action, because this conference, you can get all of this information thrown at you, but if you don't go take it back and apply it, then why did we just sit here for 2 days? So I'm hoping that I can inspire you to action through this process as well. But first, I'm going to tell you a blonde joke. Are you ready for it? So this blonde is working on a puzzle at her kitchen table. And her husband walks in and looks at her and goes, "Honey, what are you trying to do?" And she's like, "I'm working on this puzzle." She's just staring at it. And he goes, "What is the puzzle of?" And so she holds up the box. And she's like, "It's a rooster." He's like, "Honey, let's put the cornflakes back in the box." Thought it was a food-appropriate blonde joke. All right, so in reframing AI, I've already said it once, and I'll say it again so you remember it, that it's in your supply chain whether you control it or not. So how you choose to use AI is important. Recognizing that it's there. I know this is not a room full of IT people, but it is in your supply chain. Who thinks that something has changed? Gosh, so much has changed in the last 12 months. But can you think of something that has changed with the application of AI in the last 12 months in your personal life or in business? The last 12 months, there have been leaps and bounds, right? AI is a model that's improving. How we apply it is improving. As we train models, it's improving. All of these things, we've also learned how not to use it, right? Maybe we made a mistake because AI gave us direction, and you're like, "Oh, well, that wasn't very smart to look at." But what does this mean for food operations? We have a lot of data, but we don't necessarily have ways to apply it. AI is a great way to help you apply data. We also are in a very compliance-heavy industry, right, in food manufacturing. Another way to leverage AI is to help with compliance as you analyze all of that data. The other thing about food and beverage manufacturing that we as quality people probably hear more about but don't think about as much is that it's a margin-sensitive business, right? Quality and regulatory are viewed as a cost center, right? Operations goes, this quality program, this quality thing that you're trying to do is going to cost us money. So with a margin-sensitive business, you have to be thinking about ways that you can help save the business, not just from a risk standpoint, but from a operational standpoint. If you can come to operations and say, hey, we can save in, I don't want to say headcount because AI, you still need experts, but we can save in this way, or we can, recover this much material, or whatever it is, they're going to love you, right? If you can speak operations language, you can really help. All right, so now getting you guys to think in your businesses, and we think of how we generally use AI. If we use Google, maybe use Gemini on your phone, maybe you've even gone as far to use Replit and build an app or do something. But I want you to think of a bottleneck in your business, a data bottleneck. I'm going to go through some of them, but I want you to think of one and how it applies to you. What's the task that you have to do every day that AI could do for you? What's a complaint that you see? I just want you to think about this, and we'll try to solve for it during this presentation. So the first one is supplier documentation chaos. How many regulatory people have to deal with supplier documentation? Woohoo! There's quite a few hands in here. Receiving documents and getting them out to customers, sales team coming and asking you about whether or not they can get this document from you. Maybe you have an expired doc. Who in here lives in their email to do this? A few hands. Who here lives in TraceGains to do this? A few more hands. So supplier documentation is a big bottleneck for a lot of companies, and there are data extraction tools and ways that we can leverage AI to help. How about COA release and review? Do you guys all monitor your COAs on receipt as you're receiving material? Who's still doing it like with a clipboard on a dock? Yeah, I see giggles because that's absolutely how it still gets done. Who in here is using an AI tool to read their COAs? So they just look at ones that are flagged. I have a few customers in here. I should see a few more hands. How about for supplier onboarding? How long does that process take? Somebody shout out a number. How long does it take to onboard a new supplier, get a new ingredient? Depends on how fast they respond. Yeah. It's a big part. But average, say, 4 weeks? No? Longer? Shorter? Longer. All right. Longer, shorter. Okay. How about manual data entry? Who enters data into more than one platform? Any errors ever happen with that? Never. All right. How about demand forecasting not matching inventory? It's more of a procurement issue, but definitely falls in when we're scrambling for new ingredients because of it. Traceability and recall readiness. Who in here is ready for their next recall? I should see some hands. I feel like most of you guys are pretty competent. Who's going to have to work 80 hours in a week if they get a recall? Yeah, that's a part of it as well. All right. Customer inquiry response time. As a salesperson, this is an interesting thing to me. How long does it take for you to get documentation, like to respond to a documentation request? 0.5 days? So we have a metric. I like it. We have a number. We know. It's measured. As you guys all know as quality people, that is an important part of the process. All right, so I hope I have you all thinking about some pain point. Everybody have something that they're like, oh man, that is such a pain. Yeah? All right, let's relieve some of the pain. So where is AI actually working? Efficiency, data extraction. You no longer have to sit and open a document to know what's in it. You can pull data off of documents and put it into dashboards and see it readily available. You can also set it to approve documents. So if a document has this information, then I'm going to approve this document, right? If it's a GFSI cert and it's this category, if it's BRC and it's a B or above, right? You can set up rules with data extraction, which can help with workflows, which then helps to reduce risk, right? So the focus with where AI is working, it helps things happen faster, it helps things be less risky, and it also helps with cost, right? The less time you spend reviewing docs, the more time you can spend actually doing your job, right? Going out on the plant floor, communicating with other people, doing label reviews, helping with process improvement, and it gets you out of that daily grind, which enables you to grow. So again, I'm going to say those three things where AI is actually working: speed, risk, and cost. Okay, that's where you want to focus. And I want to make sure, and I'm going to say this probably 1,000 times during this presentation, and if you can talk to me, I'll say it again. Don't automate the process that takes you 4 hours once a quarter. As much of a pain as that is, it's not going to help you in your day-to-day. Automate the task that takes you 10 minutes every day. The thing that you can win the most with is the thing that you have to do every day, whether it be this COA thing that I mentioned, approving documents, right? Maybe you spend an hour approving documents a day. If you got that hour back, maybe you could actually work 8 hours instead of 9 hours in a day, right? Maybe you could actually get out on the plant floor more often. Maybe you would get through supplier onboarding quicker, right? So automate the things that happen every day and not the things that happen once a quarter. So with that, I'm going to share some of my common pitfalls, and these are some of my favorite things because it's kind of amusing, the trouble that we get ourselves into, especially with AI. So the first pitfall I'm going to talk about is treating AI like a tool instead of a workflow redesign. So when you get it to just do your job, you're not actually improving anything. But when you train it to do something for you, right? So if I think of the example that I have already given here of the document approval, instead of just having it extract the data, so now I go look at a dashboard to do my job, having it extract the data and actually approve the document for me, right? Having it do the workflow, the process for me, having AI take the approved data and push it into my ERP, right? Make it a workflow redesign, how you do work different, instead of just making it easier for you to view a dashboard. People also, big pitfall, start with this giant AI strategy, right? Somebody at the top says we have to apply AI. We've actually seen it in what we call boomerang layoffs, right? These big companies saying, I'm going to introduce agentic AI for all my customer service, and they lay off all these people, and then they quietly rehire, right? They start with this big AI strategy, and then it fails. So start small. Don't go out swinging. Start with one simple task that you can utilize, and I'll talk about some of the other pitfalls with big AI strategies. Ignoring data readiness. If you have garbage data and you ask AI to analyze it, it's going to give you garbage out, right? Garbage in, garbage out. We say that with everything. But if you don't have good data, you're not going to get good information out of AI. Over-indexing on cost savings. So, operations goes, how much is this going to save me when they're trying to approve your project? When really the risk saving and the speed that this is going to help you gain is the big focus. So a lot of times people get so hung up on how many tokens is this going to cost me to do? Or, how much is it going to cost for each person in my organization to have this? And so we need to focus on the value that it's going to give and not just the cost. And the final pitfall is the lack of ownership. So if you have an IT prerogative, an IT thing that needs to happen, somebody needs to own it, right? Somebody in your organization needs to own that process. Is it IT? Is it quality? Right? Who is going to own the AI initiative? I think this is huge because operations might, quality might, IT might, right? I see this not just with AI application, but with anything like responsibility-wise within our organizations. I run into it a lot when we're talking about things like sustainability, right? Like, who owns sustainability? What was that? All of us? All of us. That's a good answer. But you have to have ownership or else nothing gets done. All right. So I'm going to talk through this slide. It's a little bit cluttered, but I want to talk about how we are applying AI, whether it be for data extraction, reading COAs, in each of these places. So a lot of people think of TraceGains as supplier management. Many people have to go and load documents for some of their customers in there. As suppliers, maybe you're collecting supplier documentation in there. But one of the first places that we layered AI into was on our supplier questionnaire. So when a supplier goes to fill out an allergen form or a nutrition form, they can actually upload their own form, and it fills out the standard form for them. So that's the first place that we layered it in, is within our Gather platform. They can upload a document. We use AI data extraction. It's also within our Gather platform in the search functionality. Because if I go and I search in Google for an ingredient, it's going to give me who knows what from nuts.com. Sorry if nuts.com is here. But it's going to give me who knows what from who knows where. When I search in Gather, we actually use AI in there to make the matches, to index it right, to make sure that you're finding what you're looking for when you ask within the search functionality. The next place that we layered AI into is our supplier compliance, which is our certificate of analysis scanning. So we've always had AI in the form of optical character recognition, so in the form of OCR, within our background platform. So if you want to consider optical character recognition, I think a few years ago I actually did another AI talk here in Canada, and I gave the timeline of how long AI has been around. It's not something new, right? Even when it was a big deal in 2023, 2024, it's not something that's new. We've been using OCR since 2008, right? So OCR is the actually pulling of the data off of the document. So we are pulling COA data based on attributes that you set up in the system. How we've layered in AI even more now is instead of just reading where you put the box, it's reading the whole page and looking for those attributes to pull out. So that was the next AI enhancement that we did that I've seen great success with my customers. Then we pulled it into our supplier management piece. And this is the GFSI cert that I was talking about. This is the allergen form. This is any of the standard documentation. It's being able to pull that data into a dashboard and put it into workflows so that you can approve documents. We've slowly layered this in, I would say, everywhere else. Specification management. We have a product called Next Lab that we haven't even released yet that I get to talk about that's for formula management. I've been doing some bench work behind it. Next Lab is an AI assistant for formulas. So we've really tried to take AI and leverage it in ways. And so the ways that I want you guys to hear is the first one would be the document extraction, right? Pulling data off of documents. The next way that I want you to think about it is in a purpose-driven system. If I were to go and take there's not a lot of there's regulatory people, but maybe not so many R&D, but if I go and take a formula and I go and ask Gemini or ChatGPT or one of those large language models, LLMs, and I asked it to reformulate this for me to take out the gum, it's going to do it for me, but when I go do the bench work, it's not going to be pretty. Right? It has not been trained to do what I'm asking it to do. Just like if I asked Gemini, and many of you in this room have heard this story, I asked Gemini a question about an automotive. I took a picture of a truck engine, and I asked where to put the oil, and it told me very confidently to put the oil in the radiator. Right? If I go and ask ChatGPT how to remove the gum from my muffin, it's going to very confidently tell me the wrong answer. So you need a purpose-driven, a purpose-built system. That's where AI is going to succeed, is in the systems that are built for purpose. So things like our document intelligence within food and beverage, right? If you go and ask Gemini right now about a car, it's going to talk to you about an automobile and not a corrective action report. Okay, when language translations and things like that are going to come into play. So with NextLab, if I go and ask NextLab to reformulate for me, it's been programmed by food science text, by me going and doing bench work, right, to actually tell me what I need to do to remove the gum from that product. Taking it a step further into our compliance suite, if I go and say, hey, can I produce this muffin for use in Greece, it's going to tell me what regulation I need to look for, right? It's going to point to it. If I go and ask Gemini, it's going to be like, sure, I think so. Pretty confidently be wrong. So it's important to use purpose-driven AI when you are applying it in food and beverage. So exactly what I was talking about, taking all of that unstructured data and applying it with structured data. I talked about intelligent document processing. I've talked about automating workflows. Automation is going to be one of the biggest things. New product development, looking at regulatory risk. I know a few in here did the Michigan State program with me on international food law. Dinesh is one of my classmates. Anybody else in here done food law courses? Couple hands, couple classmates, I think. I took whole semesters on how, like Chinese food law, on how to find the regulation, where to find the translations. There are AI tools now that we partner with SGS DigiComply to extract data. I can go and look up a regulation and create like a label review checklist with AI in minutes instead of weeks, right? Those are the tools that you can use and the tools that we have. And then supplier insights. So using all of this data to drive compliance and to look at things bigger picture. So again, some of the things that make TraceGains different and what I want you to think about when you're looking for a vendor when we're talking about an AI platform is the accuracy. So we use the industry to drive our products. We have customer advisory groups. We have food scientists like me in the background going and doing actual bench work to test, is this system actually working? Hey, this math doesn't make sense, right? Providing real feedback. Security is another big thing. If I don't have the security, if I go and enter my information into Gemini or into ChatGPT, it's now part of that LLM, right? It's now part of that large language model. So the security piece is very important. Within TraceGains, your data is siloed to your information. The NextLab is for your information. It can pull information from the network. That's public information, but it's still your data, you're training it. We've trained it on textbooks and everything else, but it's your information within there, right? So you're gonna pass all the SOC 2 compliance, everything that your IT is looking for in a model. And then integration. If you're still entering data into a whole bunch of different systems, we're not helping you. So we have professional services and tools to be able to help integrate into other systems. So all the data that you're collecting from your suppliers, you can feed into your ERP. You can take ERP and PO data and put it back into our system. So integration, security, and accuracy are the things that I want you to be thinking about when you're looking at AI solutions. Quick commercial here that we have partners. Who recognizes some of these other companies? Videojet from your plant floor, maybe. X-Rite, Esco. So at TraceGains, we were acquired in 2024, and we are now part of this larger network. So we're no longer the 150 employee software company that we once were. We're part of a larger network, and with that comes integration. So something to think about as you choose a partner as well. We are part of the product quality and innovation team. All right, a quick call to action before we get into questions. So pick that one high-friction workflow. Think back to the bottleneck, okay, that you had, and think about how AI can apply. If you can't think of it, how AI can apply, come talk to us. We'll help you solution and problem solve that. But pick that one high-friction workflow and work towards fixing it. Measure the time that that task takes before AI, because if you don't measure it, you're not going to know what changed, right? Be careful what you measure, but measure time and risk before AI. Apply that AI for 90 days. Try it, right? See how it improves your team's processes. Make it one accountable owner, right? If you give something to a team, I know this from experience, you email a group of people and no one responds, right? Pick one person to assign the accountable owner. And don't wait for perfect data, right? Take action now. So make sure that you connect with me at our booth. I'm here to network. You'll see me in the back crocheting. You'll see, I always try to find the dietitians. Who are the dietitians in the room today? I know I saw somebody that said nutritionist, I thought. I don't see any hands. Maybe I just can't. Oh, I see one. We'll connect afterwards. I always like to connect with the dietitians in the room. It's always funny at food safety conferences because we're not the normal. Before I start with questions, I have one more joke for you guys. You ready? Does everybody know what an LLM is? Large language model. Okay, so an LLM walks into a bar. The bartender asks, "What do you have?" The LLM says, "What's everyone else having?" If you don't get the joke, come see me later. We need to talk. And with that, I can go for questions.
Oh, my goodness. Open the floor up to any questions. We have one back there. Sorry, go ahead.
Hello, my name's Lindsay. I'm a process engineer at Grand River Foods. My question's around document extraction. So in a couple cases, we have handwritten documents. What's the accuracy of pulling the handwriting from the documents, or do we need standardized documentation to pull from? Thank you.
Yeah, with AI, if your eye can read it, then our tools can read it. So handwritten documents. I don't know if does anybody in here use Gemini? Like personally? Have you ever scanned? I do this with my kids' homework all the time. I use Gemini to take a picture, and I say, "Help me solve this problem." And it does it. So I would say even for our platform, AI is smart enough that if your eyes can read it, if it's not legible and you can't read it, the computer can't either. But for the most part, you can. Other questions?
Well, one second, sir. We're just going to get you a microphone.
Dinesh from Coca-Cola. My question is about your TraceGains connection to the regulatory database. For example, you mentioned about China's regulation. Regulations are very complex language, and there is a need of interpretation of those language. So I wonder, how do you connect the regulatory language with this TraceGains so that the interpretation of the regulation is correct to the scenario which you are looking for? So I would like to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
I love that question, Dinesh. So if you guys didn't hear about how we connect the regulation, right, complex regulation, to the food application or to the application within our system. So we partnered with SGS DigiComply. So experts is the answer, right? Experts actually looking at and linking the regulation within our platform. So we have 170 countries mapped currently. As regulations change, we rely on our data partner to update to those. How we manage it, let's say if you're in our formula management module, is by creation of attributes. So I'm going to go and make a rule based on a regulation, so I can see the regulation one, and then I'm going to make a rule that I'm going to apply to formulas, and then basically AI is going to make suggestions. And this time, something I didn't hammer home enough with my presentation, but I usually do, is that AI is not here to replace you. It's not here to replace anyone in this room, because you still need experts to augment AI. You absolutely need experts in that process. So at TraceGains, we have 2 regulatory people on our staff, in addition, just for labeling, in addition to our partnership with SGS to G-Comply.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.